Welcome to Born for This. I'm Dr. Johanna, a holistic doctor, a mother, and someone whose entire world changed the day our son was born with a condition I had never heard of.
And I'm Peter, entrepreneur and father. This isn't just our story, it's a space for every family who's ever been blindsided by a diagnosis, walked into an operating room with their heart in their throat, or had to parent through the unthinkable.
Welcome back for Born for This Stories. We're excited that you're here today, and we wanted to do a little bit of like a different type of episode because we've gotten so much like positive feedback and just people super excited about our story and our mission. But one thing that we are getting is that I think listeners think that we're only going to be talking about our son's condition, but our whole mission is much bigger than just what we have went through and our experience. So I would just like to start off by saying we started this podcast because of one condition, because of our son's hypospadias, but it has evolved into so much more than that because of our stories and the experiences we've actually been able to hold and have with other families with children that have different diagnoses as well. So I'm excited to just kind of dive in and talk about our mission and what all that means from here on out for this mission that we have.
Yeah, it's already been pretty cool since we went live. It's been, just a week now? Not even a full week, which is exciting. But even just in that short amount of time, we've already gotten so much outreach from people, even in different parts of the world, which is pretty cool, going through different things with their kids. And it's not just what we're dealing with exactly, but they're dealing with a lot of the same emotional and just lack of knowledge and lack of understanding what they're about to go through or what they have gone through, or they have different stories that they've already experienced and showed some interest in sharing. So we're really excited about the wide variety of different content that we're going to be able to get out to people and hopefully help different people with different situations and scenarios get through hard times.
I think motivation number one to start this was when we were going through it, and this was back, Silas was born in 2022. So when we were going through this with him and the condition that he had, the resources were super limited, even in a time of like the internet and all of that stuff. So there were, of course, your Facebook groups, but it was very like black and white, like we've talked about before. There was really no like middle ground to support and to work through that thought process of like what is the right decision to make. There were maybe like a handful of books, one being like super medical, one being from the perspective for us from grown adults who have lived with hypospadias. So there was nothing for the parent per se. There was nothing really hardy for the caregivers going through this. And even like we've shared before, being in like a support group that was being ran by older men, which again is fine, but as a caregiver and especially as a mom, the conversations that were being had were not the same. They were not meeting me on the level that they needed to meet me with. So that's where once we got through this whole basically 2-year process and got to the other side and could really see a clearer vision, and got to a point that we felt comfortable talking about it, that we knew something had to change. And I will say, just in the short time that we have launched, so like the week that has been going on, we've connected with other organizations around hypospadias itself. And there is more content out there now. And we're just hoping to continue to expand upon that, not just with hypospadias, but with all kinds of medical conditions or unforeseen birth defects, and things that you're navigating with your children, because a lot of the stories are the same. The isolation's the same, the lack of proper research, the lack of, informed consent, all of this stuff seems to be very similar across the board. So that is definitely our main mission,
Yeah.
our main driving factor, I guess we'll say.
I think that it's really easy after you go through something like this to simply move past it, not talk about it. I know That's one of the things I said when we were in the midst of things is I said, "I can't wait to get this behind me and never talk about it again," because it was just I think of it as my son, and it's private, and it's not anybody's business besides his and ours. But then as we got more removed from it, it just became a little bit more like, man, it would have been nice to have a couple other people to talk to. But I think even if it's not something that's, you know, exactly what he went through and what we went through, there's when it's dealing with your kid, it's always going to be a little bit private. And I mean, we have friends that went through things that we didn't know the extent of it. Even if we knew part of it, we didn't know the full extent of it because people just don't talk about it. So we felt even though it's uncomfortable and the different thing to kinda do, we felt like we could provide a lot of resources and pull a lot of resources together to make some of these situations on people easier. I think you were saying that you already had somebody kinda reach out to you about that exact thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten really positive feedback. I've gotten a lot of DMs about like, "Oh my gosh, like I went through this or my kid has had this." And then you're right, it is isolating. I had no one to talk to. And these are conditions that are different than what our son had. So I think it's important to just remember like you don't need a diagnosis also to feel lost inside the system. I mean, as most of you guys know, like I'm a holistic doctor, I'm a chiropractor. We see a lot of families and young children in our practice, pregnancy, postpartum. And that also allows for me to have these raw conversations with caregivers and moms with these unforeseen diagnoses because they're happening inside of our city. And they're not only happening inside of our city. I mean, I've gotten DMs from people in different countries asking like if the podcast is going to be translated into different languages and how do they get access to it and things. So there is that just shows that there is a need, but also like that expansive like mindset of like it's just not on one thing. It's on all the things that children can go through and experience and, I mean, I just like to share a story that I had a mom the other day come in. I mean, her daughter is like right under kindergarten age, like pre-K age, and she just got a diagnosis of being on the spectrum. And already the mom was like, I feel so lost. I asked the physician, like, what are my options? They just kind of were like, here are two things that you can look into and maybe do. And she's like, I left feeling just completely like blindsided. I didn't really know where to start with this information. It's going to take me forever to get into these two schools to see if she even fits in or if it's a good fit, and I'm just really not sure what to do right now. So that's I mean, it doesn't have to happen at birth. It can happen once your child's multiple years old, and if those are the things that are happening, we need to do better and we need to build a community, a space to support these caregivers and help them navigate this space in a way that is also like not black and white. It doesn't have to be this way or that way, but here are your options, here are your resources. And that's what the whole goal and vision that this podcast is starting at, but it's going to be expansive. Like we're going to help build this community for you guys. So, the way that we could do that is by starting to share our story, even though it's terrifying and we weren't sure the response that we were going to get. So, that was step one.
Yeah, I think that back to not wanting to share the story, but I think there's certain things that changed in our minds that made us realize we gotta do something, and it kinda became a calling for us to start talking about things is, for me, one of the biggest things was is that and I don't know the medical world enough, to really say what the problem is and find it exactly, but when we had our first consultation and got the full understanding of what was going on, and then we saw the solution that that doctor had posed to us, and then furthermore, we did the research. I realized that we would have been in a much different spot, probably still to this day, had we ended up with that initial doctor, and I don't think it would have been anywhere near as happy ending as it was,
Mhm.
um, and it kinda led me to believe that there was a lot of just bad information out there, and you can't just flat out trust any doctor. They you don't like, you need to look into the statistics of that specific procedure that you're gonna have done with that specific doctor or surgeon and make sure that they have good results, and you have to look through the results. Are they cut dry? Do they mean what they say they, can you decipher what they mean properly? Because there's a lot more information there than what meets the eye when you start digging.
When I think that's a golden rule or a piece of information, because you'll hear that on our episode when we talk with the surgeons that we use, is that they are so rock solid in their stats and their success rate and repeat surgeries and all those stats that they keep track of. And one thing that they also mention is that if you're interviewing these physicians and these surgeons and they can't give you that information, A, you probably wanna run, and B, like, they should be forthcoming with it. They should be wanting to tell you, like, their success rate and how good they are and how often they do these procedures, because well, for us, like, if they're only doing it a couple times a year versus someone that doing it a couple of times a week, like, practice makes perfect, right? Like, I mean, we can
Absolutely.
cut it down to keep it, like, super duper simple, and this is the same with physicians across the board and surgeons across the board, no matter what conditions that they're treating. Some specialties will see multiple different things, but they may focus more so in one condition of that body part versus another one who really hones in and focuses. So, I mean, I talk each and every day to my patients alone about just it is your body and it's your child's body, and you may feel like you're being a pain to that doctor, no matter if it's your primary or your specialist or whatever, but you have a right to ask questions, and it's not you being combative, it's just you educating yourself and having good informed consent and knowing that you're making the right decision and picking the right provider. The Every provider is not the right provider for everyone, no matter what your insurance company says. And I think that is one of the most important things that we need to talk about and to discuss. And being okay with talking to multiple practitioners regarding a procedure or something that you want done and feeling validated and heard by that provider that you pick, and knowing that they're the one that's going to provide you with the best success rate, because there's risk to everything. So let's be upfront about that. Like, nothing does not have a risk. Like, so just being able to empower patients and parents in general to be able to do that is going to be like a big part of our mission, obviously. Sorry, I went off on a little tangent there. Get super spicy about that kind of stuff. But I think it's important to, like, remember, no matter what we're talking about, if we're talking about hypospadias, a congenital heart defect, a NICU stay, a speech delay, so many of us caregivers and parents are walking around with the same wounds, the same questions, and no one is saying, "I see you," because we think we have to handle all of this alone, and it is not that is not necessary. So, come join our space, be part of our podcast, be part of our community, because through sharing your stories, it does help other people heal and it helps yourself heal. But if you are able to share your story, you're able to possibly connect with another parent that just got a recent diagnosis for their child that is really in a dark place, that is struggling really bad. And I am very thankful. I remember I talked to two moms. One was on the phone that wasn't as impactful, but the second mom was local. We sat down at a coffee shop, and I think I just cried for like 2 hours because I was so devastated by this diagnosis. And she was able to hold that space for me and talk to me and share her experience up until this point. And our sons walked two very different stories, but to have that camaraderie inside of that time was helpful. It didn't heal anything. I mean, the process was still hard, but it was nice to know that I was not alone. So I'm very thankful for her. And I mean, she didn't have to do that. So it made a massive impact for me. And I'm glad that she was open to do it. So, like, we're hoping that you're open to sharing your stories too. Yeah. So,
Yeah, whenever you find camaraderie in a situation, it's gonna help. I mean, we can talk to our good friends about the tantrums that we're dealing with our 2-year-old or 3-year-old, or we can talk about them our older one not eating the way we want them to eat because they're really picky or they just want waffles only for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. and you can have camaraderie in that. But when you get into something like surgeries and a birth defect that your close friends probably haven't gone through that, like,
Mm.
it's easy to not really have anyone to talk to and not really figure out. You don't have anyone to bounce ideas off of. You don't have that camaraderie. So I think by forming a good resource center for that and joining in with other families that have gone through different things, I think it can be a really powerful thing.
And can be a good support too for family members of those individuals going through this, because through this just 1 week of dropping that first episode, I've also had tons of people ask me, like, how do I support my sister whose son has this going on? How do I have a conversation? How do I support them? What are the right things to say to know that, like, I obviously don't know what they're going through, but I am here. I'm willing to be a support system. I just feel like I can't say the right things. Like, how do I do that? So there's so much that goes inside of this, like, mission in this ecosystem, and that's what we're working so hard to build out. And I mean, the mission's so much bigger than our family story. That's just our vessel. Like, that's just what we knew to talk about, but we would feel called to share it because it does help us expand into so much more. And I think there's some common themes that we're gonna focus on that are important to hit. Like, we wanna talk about medical trauma. We wanna talk about the invisible grief that goes alongside with this. We also wanna bring in that integrative healing aspect of it, that some of the holistic or alternative supports that can be done if that aligns with you. But again, we're not about black and white. We're about, like, just filling that gray space and providing information. So not every family needs to be like, "Oh, yes, we wanna heal our child holistically and support them holistically." Like, we still wanna hear your story even if you don't, but that's part of our process, and I know there are other families out there that also struggle with, like, walking that fine line, so we are gonna be talking about therapies that help support them through that healing journey, and, that doesn't have to be for everyone, but if it aligns with you, super cool. That'll be part of the process. We'll talk about being, like, just having that advocacy fatigue, the strain that can cause on a marriage or even your other familial relationships, how it can affect your other children, how it can just put you totally into that, like, nervous system overwhelm, which is constantly living in fight or flight because you're just in such a stressed out state. And then also, like, how do we make peace with the situation we're going through and be able to just show up inside of that space with whatever that looks like inside of that capacity that you're currently at.
Yeah, there's just so many different factors to all of this. I mean, and it starts. I mean, when you get that, if you don't know about it when the baby's born, or you find out when the child is born. I mean, I remember you going back and having grief about your pregnancy and what caused this, what did this, and there was so much that I didn't understand because I didn't never consider that. But when you were having some of those thoughts, and I was like, man, that's something I didn't even consider as her husband, but I didn't consider that she felt like she failed as a mom or something before he was even born. But there's a lot of different things that we're gonna be able to talk about and go through with this stuff.
Yeah, across all kinds of different conditions, all kinds of different diagnoses. And I mean, I think that, like, one of the best comments that I've gotten up to this point, and we have gotten a lot, which I'm super grateful and thankful for, because it does just show that this is so necessary, is that someone literally found our podcast as they were sitting inside the hospital and their child was going through a procedure. And that is exactly why we created this, because there is no lonelier place to sit than in a surgical center, in the hospital. No matter if you have your spouse or family with you, it is still one of the most isolating days you will ever feel. And we are here to provide these stories, the support, the healing, so you don't have to feel fully alone inside that moment. And I think the cool thing with both of us doing this is we have two different perspectives from, of course, the mother and the father side. And just like you said, the thought process was different
Absolutely.
all through the different, parts that we were going through. So it's just, it's a space that we're going to hold going through very human experiences, and we're here for you.
We're not here to be the voice of one diagnosis. We're here to be the voice for the parent who's sitting in the dark, not knowing what comes next and still holding a child through it.
Absolutely, for sure. So I do want to note that, at least specifically with hypospadias, like, I'm just gonna say it, like, parents don't necessarily want to talk about it when their child's going through it, and this can be the same for multiple other conditions. So, with that being said, please don't feel like you can't share your story. You absolutely can. We don't have to put you on camera. We can use a fake name, but it's just important about collecting that information. We can keep you anonymous, like, we're able to do that, and providing those insights in your story can help so many other families be able to handle the grief and the isolation that they are going through. So don't count yourself out. If you literally in your heart you're like, I really want to talk about this and share my story, I just can't be on camera, or I can't share my name. No problem. We got you. We're going to figure that out so that way everyone's able to fully benefit from this. I think that is like one most important thing to note. I think it's also super important to remember that we're talking about multiple conditions, nothing's out of it. So I've also, through this past like week or so, have had lots of parents reach out about like, oh, are you going to talk about this condition? You're going to talk about this condition? You're going to talk about this? Yes, whatever you want to hear, like lay it on us, slide into our DMs, let us know. We'll start hitting up the groups and asking for people that want to speak and share their stories, and we'll start getting those episodes recorded. So nothing's counted out. I mean, I won't say nothing, but like
Yeah.
most things are not.
Yeah. Even if sharing is not your thing, just talk with us and let us know so that we can reach out. We have a pretty good network of and ways to get people to come on and talk about their situation. And if you have a specific thing that you want to hear about, we'd love to know.
And we were definitely called for so much more than just 1 or 2 episodes on hypospadias, and so we're here to answer them. I also wanna put out there that, like, if you're listening to this and you're another, like, health provider or even just, like, know people, we are looking to interview people for hyperbaric oxygen, for trauma therapists, functional pediatricians. We wanna obviously talk to parents and caregivers about their stories of either the birth trauma, the NICU experience, chronic illnesses, unexpected genetic birth defects. I mean, really anything. We want to talk about the mental health side of all of that stuff. So we're calling in all of those types of people. Like, we want to hear from you. We want to share your expertise, your experience. So definitely go to our website, which we'll drop at the end, and fill out an inquiry form so we can better serve you and make this as strong of a community that we possibly can.
Yeah, you can also simply message on Instagram as well if you just want to have a casual conversation and chat a little bit about what you're thinking. If you just want to feel it out, we're here to talk and answer questions and help in any way that we can.
Yeah, our story may have started with hypospadias, but our mission is for every parent who's ever felt like their motherhood or fatherhood broke the mold. Like, if we're here to help you, that is our mission. Maybe your child doesn't have the same condition as ours. Maybe your trauma doesn't have a diagnosis. But if you've ever felt unseen in a doctor's office, and if you've ever Googled in the dark, if you've ever tried to hold your intuition in one hand and a discharge summary in the other, then you are exactly who we made this for. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement, and we're just getting started.
Thanks everybody for listening again this week. Again, we ask that you share this episode with a friend, especially if you know somebody who's going through anything similar to this, that it might be able to help, or if you think they might have a story, maybe they went through something in the past that could help other people. We really encourage you to share it with them. Like the episode if you can, and DM us your story. You can tag us at Born for This Stories, and you can visit our website and share your story at bornforthisstories.com.
Absolutely. We would love for you to like, subscribe, and comment. Leave us a review on our podcast so we can continue to grow this community for you. Thank you.